Welcome back to the Archispeak podcast. I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
In this episode, we are doing another Archispeak University, this time on new trends in custom residential. And these are very custom residential, I would say. The guy we're speaking with in this episode is at the height of custom residential, I would say.
I would say that he's at the tip top. He doesn't have the average client with the average client budget. So he gets to field a lot of crazy requests and fulfill all sorts of crazy dreams.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting about this is that this is an opportunity that any architect could get into, but it's a different mindset. And Danny Wang, who is our guest on this episode, is a designer and a builder. So he's definitely coming at it with a end-to-end approach, right? It's a turnkey service and product, but at the same time, he's built an audience on social media, and his clientele comes from that. And he plays that game really, really well. And I think that's what is a little bit different about his approach is he's not approaching this as a traditional design build or a traditional architectural design service. It's really a modern one. And I think that's what makes it unique.
Yeah. It was a good conversation. I mean, there were definitely times where he was telling stories that were slightly jaw-dropping because we all wish we had those clients, and he's got them.
Yeah, and he has them from a very grounded place. Like, he doesn't come at it from an egotistical place at all. It's very much like there's a lot of responsibility involved in this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of the takeaways toward the end of the conversation, I think, are really solid and apply to people who are interested in this different kind of approach, because it's really about responsibility and ownership over the process. One of his favorite things that he said that I clued into was how it's our job to worry about all of this stuff when it comes to making these projects happen. And he tells the client that, like, that's what you pay me for. You pay me to take care of that stuff. You pay me to worry about that stuff, because he is ultimately the one who is delivering the project.
Right. And if we only could have clients like that on the larger commercial side of things.
Well, let's give people a little bit of a foreshadowing here. Some of the projects that he talks about, residential projects here, are in the tens of millions of dollars. And I don't want to give the numbers yet because he gives them in this episode. So I want to tease it a little bit here. And again, I think this is within reach if you want to play a completely different game than what I think traditional architects are trained to do, which is much more of a traditional service industry.
And though we really didn't talk about it a lot with Danny, one of the things that we could obviously do another show about is have him come back and talk about how he leveraged social media as a marketing and business development tool. Because he's leveraged it to a point where he's got, 1 million Instagram followers. He's got a very vibrant YouTube channel.
TikTok.
I mean, people follow for progress of some of these projects, and he gets real, true marketing out of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's the game that I'm talking about that he's playing that I think a lot of architects aren't playing. And so he, out of 1 million followers, how many clients do you need with those big budgets? Just a couple, right? And I think he alludes to that in this conversation. And those lead to other people with budgets like that. So it is a really interesting conversation. There's a lot of fun stuff that we talk about that Danny's doing. And there's a lot of really interesting kind of trends in residential that you might hear about in this conversation. You ready to jump into it?
Let's.
Well, Danny, welcome to the Archispeak podcast. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here today.
It's going to be a fun conversation because of the work that you're doing, and maybe you can tell everybody who's listening about what you're doing.
So I'm a design build firm. We design all over the world, and now we build in mostly Southern California. We try to do fun and crazy things all over the world.
Nice. So give an idea of what those fun and crazy things are. I mean, the focus of this episode is really around residential projects indoor outdoor kind of blending of living space and the work that you're really specializing in. But give us a flavor of what that is when it comes to the work that you're specifically doing.
So, we're kind of now known for just doing really extravagant outdoor, indoor projects. Usually people come to me to think of, super crazy ideas. So that's kind of what I do now. I just come up with really crazy things to design and then create how to build them. So
kind of living the dream. Everybody's always looking for that client to come to us and say, I've got a wild and crazy idea.
Yeah. So that's, it's definitely comes with a lot of challenges. It's not easy, but it's very rewarding.
So when they come to you, do they have kind of like an inkling of an idea and then you just have to kind of pull it out of them? Or is it a very symbiotic relationship where you kind of just work through the flow of like, what is right and also what is constructible?
Yeah.
Or do you even worry about that?
No, of course. I think nowadays we kind of build ourselves reputation on social media. So a lot of them, they'll let me do what I want to do, or I show them what I want to do, right? So I have a lot of creative freedom in that aspect. So it's more of this is what I want, and then they'll give me a checklist, and I have to go and wow them. Yeah.
Give some ideas of what those kinds of things are, or maybe let's start off with just like what has surprised you when it's like I would have never seen that coming kind of a thing. Because I think the things that I've seen in your social media feed is like they're extravagant, they're beautiful, but at the same time, I can't imagine that you've always been able to list out what the standard list of things. It's got to be something where it's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
For the clients or for me?
Yeah, from the clients.
Both. Oh,
well, let's do both. Let's do clients first. I was gonna say, and then let's do you.
So let's say today I just had a meeting off. It's probably gonna be like $40-50 million project. It's a really small space, but we're doing a pool that's over their basement, like home theater, gaming area. And then we talked about putting acrylic windows from the pool so you could see below, and also from below you could see above. And one of those windows is located where the jacuzzi is, and because water is a very good transducer of light. So I said there's one job that I designed where I used the acrylic on the ceiling and the water above, I used that as a chandelier because you could change the color. Yes. It lets light through, and you can see the really nice glimmering. So that was, that's pretty crazy, right? It's just not everybody has a jacuzzi as a chandelier, right?
So let me ask, when you have that kind of a project where it's this basically an aquatic space above an occupied space, are you doing both of the spaces? So that you're basically building it. It's not, I guess, so I've got my little project manager mind kind of rolling, and it's just like, please tell me that this isn't an existing space that he's going to have to come back in and rip a bunch of stuff out and build a bunch of stuff over it, that he's going to have the opportunity to do it all at one time.
Yeah. So we have, most of these are brand new builds, so we're able to do it all at once. Yeah. But still, it's challenging, but it's fun. I'm doing a couple of those right now. Another one, they got kind of like an indoor tennis court. Nice. So that one, the architect and the client brought to me. I was like, oh, wow, I've never seen, indoor tennis court is pretty impressive, right? Yeah. And then we're putting a koi pond on top as an entry.
Wow. Entry.
Yeah, so as you walk in from the garage, you're walking over this koi pond, and then underneath the koi pond, it's a tennis court.
So that's kind of a soothing way to get ready for the match. It's kind of like calming for that.
It's just, it's pretty impressive that people have, because I've seen indoor basketball courts, I see indoor, gun range and things, but indoor tennis court is pretty like, wow, that's, and then on top of it, have a koi pond on top.
How has your business grown from, I'm kind of assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it was more conventional, kind of creative spaces, but a little more conventional to, as you started to explore a little bit and you started to get a little bit more adventurous, that people are like, this guy can do it.
Yeah.
And then you've just gotten, am I assuming that just grew from, they're like, let's test how crazy we can get.
Yeah. So, I think a lot that has to do with my background. So I started out as a contractor. I didn't even know I could design, right? So I never even dabbled into designing. And then 10 years in my contractor career, what happened was I started using 3D programs, and a couple of my designers were so busy that I had this project that I really had to get done. So I started playing with it, dabbling with it, and started creating those ideas in the program. And more I did that, it kind of allowed me to say, well, what if I did this, right? Like, what if I kind of express, like what I could do, right? So with the 3D program, I was able to do a lot of that. And then I was also very busy at the time. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to suggest this crazy idea to a client, right? The crazier, the better, right? Because if I don't get the job, then I don't really care. And what happened was the more I explored, it was well receptive by the client because they're like, oh, that's a fresh idea, right? Because one of those first ones were I wanted to put this tea garden inside a pond. So I did that. I did kind of like a sunken tea garden. You're kind of sitting there surrounded by water. And then over there by the water, we had this like floating, not floating, but over there by the water, we had this like Zen garden. And we had this, on the other side, we had this outdoor cooking area because the client owned a restaurant. He was in the restaurant business. So I was like, okay, let me create something that's really wow outdoor environment because most of the restaurants are kind of indoor. This one was kind of unique because then let me create a really nice outdoor experience. So we had, teppanyaki bar, and behind it there's water wall, and then we had this sunken seating tea area where you could have afternoon tea. So that was more and more after that, and just like, okay, you know what? Seems like what I have to offer people is people like it, right? And they're willing to spend more money on it. What happens if I go crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier, right? So it just kind of like, what could I imagine today, right? Yeah.
I think what's interesting about that strategy, I mean, it sounds like you didn't really plan that strategy out, but it happened and it proved itself. And then you took it to the next level and it proved it and you took it to the next level. So it's been this iterative building thing over time. And what's interesting to me about that is there's so many people in business who double down on just what they're good at, becoming more and more efficient and offering that very specific service. What you're talking about is something completely different than that. And you were pushing yourself, you're pushing what you're capable of designing, you're pushing what you're capable of building. And at the same time, you have to deliver it, right? So you're putting something, some kind of boundary on this to just know that you can perform it. But I mean, talk us through that because I think that's super interesting. A lot of architects who listen have pigeonholed themselves into the kinds of services and designs that they offer. And that's kind of a harsh word, but at the same time, like I can't think of anything better at the moment. So maybe talk about that because I'm sure that like this has been exciting for you. Like you said, it's still difficult these are difficult, challenging projects, but I'm sure that's also part of why you're doing what you're doing. You like the challenge of it.
Yeah. And I think what's really nice about it is because I was a person that also I work with tons of designers, and I think where I could design literally comes from them, right? If I'm working with all the top designers and it's like osmosis, right? Like if I'm the one that's building all of it, I kind of absorb a lot of it. So what's made it really successful is I knew how to build a lot of this crazy stuff already. So then it's just like, okay, it's almost like I know how to build this. This is the limitation of what I could build. How could I change it, right? And a lot of that is also because at that point I was pretty good as a builder already. Like people refer me pretty complex jobs, so I already have the reputation of doing pretty complex project, and you earn the client's trust already because I built projects for them. So that was a pretty simple transition because I already have proven myself as a builder. And now it's just adding my own flavor to it. So that was actually not as difficult as, let's say if I just started out and I didn't know how to do anything.
Have you, through this process, let's call it a journey, as a builder to a design builder, have you kind of been able to not only just push what you are learning and now kind of like excelling at the design aspect of things, but it's even pushing what you can build. And now you're like, okay, 10 years ago, I might have only been able to build this, but now, the trial and error and everything else, and just being able to kind of use the design build aspect as
Yeah.
a proving ground.
Mm-hmm.
You've grown to be able to say, oh, I didn't know steel could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where social media is great, right? So now we kind of build a reputation. There's clients that come to us and say, okay, this is what, go push the limit, right? So now the money's there. Now you just have to come up with the idea. So that's really what's helped a lot, is also because let's say I'm building a $1.5 million pool, right? The client wanted me to go build a $1.5 million pool, right?
You didn't
wasn't
have to
like
convince them. Yeah.
I didn't have to convince them to just say, hey, here, I want to go build the craziest thing that you could think of.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, I could think of, this, right? And whether you like it or you crazier, I could always go crazier. So it's just, I think that's what is good about doing that and it's executable, right? I think that's one of the things that as an architect or designer, right? Like when you design something that's super crazy, you don't know if it's going to get built, right? Because of cost, because of engineering. So when we go through this process, we already eliminate a lot of that, right? So that saves, that actually saves a lot of time. I think that's why we're able to do so much, because there's a lot less back and forth. It's like, okay, let me come up with this idea. Okay, it's going to be $1 million. That's, and then it's like, oh, that's 10 times over my budget. Let's value engineer it. And then let's still 10 times, 5 times over my budget. Let's go do this, right? So versus in the beginning, we just said, okay, let's come up with this. This is probably going to be $500,000 to $1 million. I don't know the exact number yet, but is that within your comfort zone of spending, right? And if it is, then okay, we move forward. Let's get an engineer. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. So we're spending a lot of time not doing that, and we're spending a lot more time into, okay, let's just how to build this project, because the pricing is correct. I'll give you a range. We know how to build this. The design you like. So that's really saves a lot back and forth between, and also because it's all in-house, right? It's all in-house. It's not like, oh, let me go talk to the architect, let me call to the engineer, let me call to the contractor, let me go talk to, whoever else is involved in the project. So that's really where I think it has benefited us, because, let's say I'm designing something, I'm pretty confident that we're going to build it, right? And whether that costs, and I already told you the range. So the likelihood of closing a deal is pretty high, because I already explained all the unknowns, right? And now it's just doing it. So that's I think one difference between a lot of my competitors and myself is just usually you don't have someone that could do that, and going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and there's limitations, there's unknowns. It just it takes a lot longer. Yeah.
Full service. One of the ideas of that where architecture as an architect only, just providing that service, is that process is quote unquote wasteful. And I think a lot of architects might have an allergy to me saying that, because it's what they do. It's what we do as architects. But at the same time, I don't think it's
wasteful. Yeah.
People buy the project. That's what your clients ultimately want, and it's a necessary waste because it is the design process that takes the ideas and synthesizes them into reality. But at the same time, like, nobody's buying a set of plans. They want the final thing, right? And so this idea of you eliminating steps along the way because you do it all in-house, I think is just it's an interesting thing for people to hear, because what you're talking about is by removing uncertainty along the way and reducing risk because you have answers is something that clients find desirable in the process that they normally don't like about the process with working with architects, and then moving it on, handing it off to a contractor. For example.
I got in trouble for saying this in one of my previous podcasts, and I got a lot of heat. Most of my clients, they don't want to be part of we call it the sausage making, right? They just want they want to spend a lot of money, and then they want to finish project beautifully. Like, they don't want me to bother them with it. They don't want me to say, hey, we have this issue today, or I don't know how to do this, right? They don't have time for that, right? And they're most of them, they don't have the time to be also involved in my projects, because they're they're busy making money. So it's almost like I kind of attribute this also to, because a lot of my clients run really large businesses, and they trust the people, they delegate these priorities to the people that work under them. So that's really helpful, because then they know that they don't need to get in your way, right?
Yeah.
You hire a good person, you let them do your thing. I have some clients, I don't talk to for 6 months, right? So it just
Yeah.
that's helpful. Yeah.
We tend to not really have necessarily that luxury,
Yeah.
whereas we've got clients who really want to kind of get their hands into the mix of everything.
Yeah. And
So it's actually kind of, rewarding to do
Yeah.
a design build type project like that that's a little bit more hands off. They know what they want.
Yeah.
They know that you can deliver it.
Yep.
And you're able to just basically kind of step back and say, let me do what I know what to do.
And if they really want to be involved, then they should go hire someone else, right? Yeah, because then I can't do.
Or even if they do want you involved, I mean, they're going to know where the limits are of what they can and can't do.
Yeah, and then I think this is where press and past projects and things like that, it's just like, hey, these projects all won a lot of awards, feature on magazine covers, right? If you want to get involved, it's not going to be any of that. So it's not going to be on the cover. It's not going to be on, right? Because unless it's just, but again, at the end of the day, they're my clients. So what we do need to do is we need to take in what they want. But then after I get the list of what they want, let me go create, that's why you hired me. Let me go do my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that because it's like I think there's a lot of people out there who want to tell that to their clients, but
you just have to have you have to be
Yeah.
bold, right? You have to say, hey, I'm willing to not. And I think that's really what helped us is just saying no to. I say no to probably 99% of people that call me, right? It's just the start doesn't align, the price is not right, the project's not impressive, so whatever, right? But you gotta stick to your gun and say, okay, this is what I do. If you're gonna let me do my thing, then I need to be in charge, and this is why you're paying me, right? If you want to be involved, you should just go do your own design and then hire your own contractor and do that, right?
Yeah.
So
well, I appreciate you giving us a taste of all that, and I'm sure we'll get into a few more specifics as we go through this. But I'm interested to hear from you from kind of this educational perspective of this episode. If you could kind of talk about the transition of, and I'm making an assumption here that through the time you've been doing design build, that projects were indoor plus outdoor, and now we're seeing a more merging of indoor and outdoor integrated. And so the idea of that and where you're doing your projects, I'm sure has quite a bit to do with that. But now you said you're working internationally, and so and maybe there's some new challenges in that regard. But can you kind of talk about that transition that you've seen happen over the last few years? Because I think COVID was a real big driver for that.
So I think that was obviously we were doing outdoor living before, but so I first started doing indoors, and then I got kind of bored, and then I started doing outdoors, and then what started happening was I was doing outdoors for my clients. And they're like, well, you just did my outdoors, but now my indoor doesn't match, or it looks, doesn't look that nice, right? So then
doesn't
it's like,
look as good. Yeah,
let's go indoors, right? And that's kind of how I always tell people how I design space. I think that's just more like a personal philosophy. I designed the outdoor space to blend in with the indoor space, because especially lately with all the big windows and doors I could open in and out, I treat that as all one aesthetics. So I particularly do not like where your outside looks completely different than your inside. Even the materials, everything, I like it to blend seamlessly. Because once you open those doors, you want it to feel like it's natural, right? You don't want it to be where your eye could distinguish, oh, this is clearly outside, right? And this is inside. So even like tiles, we'll use indoor tiles, same pattern, and then we use the outdoor one, the same pattern. And the nice thing is a lot of manufacturers are into that now. So they'll make tiles that could be used outside and also for inside. So you just kind of, everything's seamless. And I always say the ability to do that, you literally double your space, right? Because now you have outdoor space, especially where we're at in Southern California. It's, open the doors, go outside, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
talk about that. Talk about why so many people have shifted outside. Is it do you really feel like it was because people were feeling stuck inside and that really drove a shift to the outside, or do you think it was more about getting more for their money with the real estate that they have, kind of a thing? Maybe it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think all of the above, right? You have for period of time where you don't go outside. You could work from home, right? You could also, your real estate price went up, right? And I think people realize, when in the pandemics, people realize, hey, a lot of their personal well-being is important, right? It's just like, okay, I could make all this money and die tomorrow, right? Or I used to spend 1 hour or 2 hours commuting, but now I have all this extra free time. I should take care of myself. Mm-hmm. And then now you're spending more time with your family, yourself. Just a lot more time is discovered. And I also attribute that most people before, they spend a lot of time outside the house, so they actually never realize how nice their house could be, right? They might have the fancy office, they might have this and that. It's like, well, how come my house has none of that, right? so it's just, I think that just kind of, it's like a clash of, it's kind of like the perfect trifecta, like the perfect storm, where it's like, okay, hey, now we're promoting outdoors, we're promoting staying home, you can work from home, you could do this and that, you don't have to commute, you have extra time, all that stuff, kind of just pushed forward this indoor living for the last couple of years.
So what are some of the attributes of the outdoor space that you've seen kind of escalate? And I don't know if it was maybe a shift from, okay, now I'm going to be spending a lot more time, like say during the pandemic, I'm going to be spending a lot more time at home. Were they asking for more things that weren't really giving them beforehand because it just wasn't of interest to them?
Yeah. So one big push is more room. So we're doing a lot more room additions, pool houses, ADUs, additional dwelling units.
The idea of utilizing the space that you have more effectively because you're spending more time there, your awareness of it is just been such expanded, right? And all of a sudden it's like you realize you don't have all those amenities there because you've been going out to do all that stuff. So bringing that onto, right. I mean, and so can you talk about like some of the types of amenities that you've mentioned a few of them, but even more specifically, are we talking about like ice plunge pools, and are we talking about saunas? And we're like, give a rundown, like a laundry list of the kinds of things you're talking about.
Basketball court, pickleball court, combo, ice plunge, sauna, steam room. Those also picked up a lot. Of course, outdoor kitchen, outdoor heating, all that picked up quite a bit as well. And then swimming pool, just outdoor living.
Does swimming pools somewhat, and I say this somewhat tongue-in-cheek because I've seen your portfolio, and when I say this, people need to go and take a look at your website and some of the extremely amazing pools that you've done. But do pools seem almost pedestrian in comparison to some of the other crazy asks that you've been getting? And again, I say that because you've got some pretty awesome pools you've done.
So I think we also integrate that, right? So this morning I was at a project walk. We're doing this really crazy project right now. You start incorporating different elements inside the pool. So, now my pools have sunken bar, sunken seating, sunken spa, right? Slide, lazy river, right? So then the pool you're building, it's almost like a canvas, and then you're plugging in all these spaces in the pool right now. Right. Wow. Yeah. So that's just gets crazier and crazier, right? I mean,
have you done a swim out summer kitchen yet, or outdoor kitchen yet?
Yeah.
All right.
What?
You know what? I mean, I kind of figured that would be something that they would ask, and I'm pretty sure Danny might have done it.
Okay, so I'm throwing up my hands here because this is not my reality. This is not my lived reality. But Danny, like you've done these. But you've done these projects, and like we alluded to earlier, because you've done these things, you take the risk factor way down for somebody to say, yes, let's do that. And I think that's what's so interesting about the like looking back and seeing the progression of what you've done over time and how it has escalated because you are able to say, oh, we do this. This is what we do. Instead of somebody like me saying, like, oh no, I've never done that. I have no idea how much that costs. I have no idea how hard it is. I'm building outs into the conversation for somebody to say no so that we don't have to do that. But you're like, bring it on. I think that's such an interesting like differentiation.
Yes, and I think earlier in my career, that is what differentiated us because no one else wanted to do it. Everybody, all the contractor wanted to go the safe route. I mean, for what we do is I feel it's pretty safe, right? But it just, they're not comfortable taking that kind of risk.
Yeah.
Is it safe only because you're adventurous enough as it is that you don't say no because, what's the point of doing it if it's reserved and conservative and all this other stuff, you kind of just want to keep driving that, that adventurous design.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is driven by the contractor, right? Also because the designers are usually pretty crazy. They're like, I want everything, right? But usually it's the contractors like, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, right? So
we've had our heart removed. We've had our heart pulled out a few times when somebody says, "Oh, you can't do that."
I don't think it's the architect or designer's problem, right? It's the person that's building it, right? Because ultimately, I see why, right? Because they're on the hook for this.
Yeah,
and but for me, it's just building something complex. It's once we visualize it, it's not that hard, right? I mean, you have enough resources, you have the engineers, you have the people that you're working with. It's challenging, but it's doable.
So is it really about a mindset there, do you think then? Because like you're saying, no, it's doable. And that's what I'm wondering is because I think there's a lot of ways that I see this manifest in the AEC industry, which is, this is the way we've always done it, or this is how we're going to do it, or we can do that, or we can't do that. And then more often it's the can't part. And I think it's interesting because you're saying, no, it's like, it's not that hard. And I've been I hear other people who are very successful in what they do repeating that kind of that's their feeling about it too. It's like, no, we'll figure it out, or it's not that hard.
So I think let me take a step back. So I think it's actually not the contractor's fault, right? Because some of these things I've never done before, right? I'm like, I don't know what's going to cost. But I go to my client and I say, hey, I don't know what's going to cost, right? I could kind of guess what's going to cost. Are you willing to go on this adventure with me? And
right.
Sometimes there aren't, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's also one thing that funds it, because they're willing to fund that unknown, right? Where most people, it's just like, no, I don't feel comfortable, spending $1 million on something like this,
Right.
So do most of your clients come with that adventurous spirit?
Not all of them, but the ones that we do take on, they understand that, hey, it's going to be one of a kind, and those are usually the people that have enough money to do these kind of things, right? It's just like, I want something that no one else has, never seen before. I don't care what it costs, because I trust that you're gonna make it one of a kind.
Well, I was more like the clients that you do take on and that go along with this ride with you. They've got to have some sense of adventurous spirit, regardless, because they know. I mean, if they're going to go on this ride with you, they know what to expect. They know what you're going to pop into the tape player and turn those jams up, because they just know. So, it's those people that we're. I would say we're always looking for those kind of like adventurous spirit ones, but then they're like, oh wait, it's going to cost how much? Okay, can you pull over and I'll jump out here?
Yeah, and if they jump out, right? But
exactly.
The nice thing is, you get enough people to do it, and this is, I mean, we could probably use this for a quote just in case I get famous. When the client says, hey, it's going to be a lot of headache, and this is what I tell them, hey, you pay me to handle all those headaches, right? That's my job, right? Your job is to sit there and enjoy the end product. So yes, of course, there's going to be a lot of headaches, but that's what I get paid for, right? Like I'm going to deal with all those headaches, right? Right? You sit there and enjoy the ride, right? Like make it as smooth, like flying an airplane. I'll take you to the destination. I'll make sure of course, it's going to be bumpy, but we'll get you there. So that's something that I think really helps. It's just, I try to make it as easy as possible for the end user, and that way they could focus on doing what they do best, right? Go make extra money, or go do this or that, right? So I think that's really where a big difference is, because some people like to make it, of course, I'm building big difficult project, right? Don't add to the stress, right? Like
Right.
I think it's like a personality thing. I'm pretty calm. So, okay, yes, it's going to be difficult. We're going to have, hundreds of problems. I got this, right? That's why I get paid. Some people will be like, oh, it's going to have hundreds of problems. I mean, you guys probably deal with contractors. Oh, it's going to have all sorts of issues. It's like, well, isn't that what you're there for? Like, you're getting paid to handle all this issue.
Exactly.
Don't bring that back on me, right? It's like, okay, So I think it's a mindset thing. It's okay, yes, we're going to have infinite amount of problems, right? Okay, that's a given.
That's normal.
But we're going to handle it, right? I'll take care of it. That's my job. We're going to problem solve. We're going to go through whoever we need to go through to get this solved, right? So it's just anything is possible if we have enough resources. And most of our clients do. So that's why it becomes a lot easier, because then it's like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to build that or how much it's going to cost to build that, but we'll get it built.
Yeah. No, I think that is a great attitude. And I keep thinking of this as you're talking about this kind of, we've talked about it already, right? But this mentality, this attitude about being up for the challenge. This is an adventure. There are unknowns. There are risks. I will do everything I can to mitigate those risks. I'm the professional. You pay me to do this. This is my expertise, and I'm going to take the headaches away. All of those things kind of play into this psychological behavior of what it takes to be successful, but also for them to feel at ease to go along this journey with you, because it is a multi-year, very expensive project, and you want them to be happy with it, right? Like that's the ultimate goal, is that they get to enjoy it as soon as possible, and all of that has to play together.
Yeah, and I always allude to this is just when I'm interviewing clients, it's almost like marriage, right? We're going to be together through ups and downs. There's going to be some times you're super angry at me. There's going to be times where you're super happy, right? You just got to go the ups and downs together. And at the end of it, you'll have a beautiful journey, right? So it's life, right? And I think for someone to do all that, you also have to be willing to take all the responsibility, right? Because typically when I used to work for designers, subcontractors, all that kind of stuff, everybody points their finger at someone, right? With this, it's just you going in, it's only going to be my fault, right? That doesn't work out.
But it's also your reward.
Yeah. So you have to go in and say
risk and reward. Yeah,
you have to go in and say, okay, I'm going to get blamed for everything, right? It's my responsibility for everything, no matter what. Designer, builder, whatever. It's all my fault. So I think that's something that not everybody's willing to take on, right? Because a lot of people are always like, oh, it's the architect's fault, it's the designer's fault, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. For us, right, it's all my fault.
There's no one else.
I'm going to take all the risk, all the things that's going to happen, and whoever messes up under my watch is me, right? And I'm the only person to blame. So also, I think that's in a sense a good thing too, because everybody that's been in this kind of building experience, they're used to someone blaming someone else, right? It's like, oh, I can't do this because that person. I can't do that because that person, right? So there's too many restraints. It's like, okay, let me clear all the restraints and burden that to myself, right? If anything happens, it's only gonna be my fault, right? Either I didn't manage this person correctly, or this messed up, or that messed up. I had to step up to a plate and address it and handle it. So I think that's something that not everybody's willing to do, because it's a lot.
It's absolutely a lot. But at the end of the day, when you can walk out to your finished creation, take that deep breath and just look at what you've created and said, yeah, it was worth the risk.
Yeah. So obviously you get compensated well for that. Yeah. So I think again, it always goes back to mindset, right? It's just, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be responsible, and there's no one else but me to blame.
You mentioned a couple different product categories, and when we're talking about blending indoor to outdoor, can you just throw out some other things where you've really seen substantial advancements in the last few years in those categories that you might bring up? I mean, we're talking about indoor-outdoor spaces, so we're talking about maintenance, we're talking about glass, we're talking about cleaning things, and there's got to be a few things out there that you've really seen some incredible new opportunities in design show up because there's been innovation or neat ideas happening with building products as well.
Well, one of the things that's really changed a lot since probably, let's say, 5 years ago, is now they're making porcelain tiles so durable, so realistic looking and indestructible. That has kind of been my go-to versus using natural stone, using this, using that, right? Because it's now when you put them side by side, you can't really tell a difference.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Porcelain tile, and you could print textures, you could have anti-slip, you could do this and that. So that's one. Outdoor heating, smart homes, integration of smart home outside. One of the things that we're personally doing into, and I'm building a showroom for, is outdoor heating. That's kind of gone a lot in advancement.
In what ways? Like what are the kinds of things that you're actually seeing happen in that category?
Yeah, so aesthetics, right? One good example will be like the Bromic outdoor heaters, right? They're very clean and sleek looking, and some of them they have integrated with lights in them. So it just becomes more like functional than just having this thing with two red tubes across, right? Or the gas heater where it burns off, it's just like little flames. And thin profile, very sleek looking. So I think that's advancement in design, where it's like, okay, hey, everybody designs this way, but let me figure out how to design it that way and still get it to work. So that's been a very big change, and we're doing that a lot in my own showroom and my projects. Mm-hmm. Another one is audio, right? I just got a bunch of these speakers, and they sound absolutely amazing outdoors. Because now, again, people are demanding more of these amenities outside, right? It's like before we would get away with those little sound speakers, but now it's like, no, I want to have a whole surround sound experience, right? Outdoor TVs, I'm hopefully doing some that are like 120, 130 inch TV that pops out of the ground, right? Before that wasn't required, but now it's like, I want to have be able to watch movie while I'm swimming, right?
But I think one of the things that's interesting about like all of the different products, the heating, the speakers, the TV, even with the tile, I mean, most of it is about being able to integrate it into the project without really seeing it there. Because we always had these challenges like, we're not going to do heating because I don't want to see, this big heating elements hovering over my head. So you've got this limitation. And so now things like heating, things like the speakers, you're able to basically make them disappear and be top quality without really sacrificing your design.
Yeah, I have not personally done one yet, but I've seen a couple and talked to a bunch of reps. It's the one that, even like we were talking about swimming pool, right? The floor comes up and it makes it disappear, right? Mm-hmm. So that's something that we haven't done, but I would love that.
I'm sure it's on the horizon.
Yeah. It works for a certain location. Like it's the one of their most popular locations is London, right? Because you have limited space. Yeah. So the pricing is not an issue, but you have the space constraint. So now they have basement pools where it's okay, you're not using it, make it into
a deck
or something.
Yeah. Something else.
So that's something that's been pretty cool. So I think that's just now this movement has kind of pushed people to say, hey, you know what? I want the outdoor heater to look nice, right? I want the outdoor speakers to sound nice. I want this and that. Like just pushes the bars. Okay, traditionally we're only here for that because no one cared about the outdoors, but now now there's I guess money in it. Let's make it better, and also the competition's a lot less.
Yeah,
you might have 2 or 3 companies doing outdoor speakers. You might have 100 that's doing indoors. So again, just differentiating themselves and say, okay, hey, this is an outdoor opportunity. How do we make better things to serve that? And it's challenging. I mean, I was playing with an outdoor speaker. Making outdoor speakers sound nice for outside is very challenging, right? It has to go through the weather, it has to go through this, it has to go through that. So, but some people, again, they're very like-minded people. They like that kind of challenge.
That sounds like the perfect place to wrap this up. And I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us and tell us about this today.
No problem. It's always nice to share the journey and what we do. So.
Well, we'll have links to where everybody can find your site, your Instagram in the show notes for this episode. But Danny Wang Design, right? That's the name of the company.
Yeah, Danny Wang Design. That's, you can find me. And then DannyWang.com. That's my website.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been a really fun conversation.